Yo, what's going on, family? How y'all doing out there? What it do? What it do? What it do? Listen, I want to welcome you all to another episode of Friday Night Live with me, Pastor Frank. I know you could have been anywhere in the world, but you here with me, and I'm so grateful. As always, do me a favor as y'all coming in. Go ahead and drop a line in the comments. Let me know where you watching from. Even if you're watching on replay, let me know where you watching from. Let me know who's watching. Say what's up to your boys. You coming in. Listen, as always, is anybody grateful or glad that God saw us through to the end of yet another week? I don't know about you, but I know I am. I say it all the time. There's someone that thought that they was gonna wake up and see the day, but they didn't. And by God's grace, and His mercy and His loving kindness, and because God still has a plan for you and me, He chose to wake us up and allow us to see a brand new day, a day that nobody has ever seen before. And for that, I'm always grateful. Um, do me a favor. Can y'all hear me? Cause my computer's doing a little something strange right there. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me. Hopefully y'all can, and we ain't got to redo a redo because how technology be acting crazy and all kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know about you all, but I'm excited. This is episode 21. For those of you who don't know, we've been going for 21 episodes strong. We only got two more episodes, but don't worry. If you missed any of the episodes and you didn't watch everything even in order, you can always go back and watch the other episodes and binge watch season two. And as a matter of fact, if you just tuned in season two, you might even want to go back to season one to see where it all started, how it all started, and how we got to the point that we are on today. And all as always, you all do me a favor. If you have not subscribed, it don't cost nothing to subscribe. Subscribe. It is free. I know I had somebody ask me, subscribe to what? I mean, I thought everybody kind of knew what that meant, but just in case, it don't cost anything to subscribe. It is free to subscribe. But so do me a favor. If you have not hit that subscribe button on my YouTube page or my YouTube channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you also hit the little bell to get the notifications so that you can stay up to date, so that you can stay current anytime I post a video, even as we're winding down with season two. As season three gets ready to come on later on, in a few months. You want to be aware of what's going on, and even if I post any other content, I want to stay connected with you, and I want you to stay connected with me. And so, make sure the best way to do that is to hit that subscribe button. So that we can stay connected. Is that all right? Well, listen, you all. Y'all saw the title. Tonight's episode, Changing Seasons. And here's the thing about changing seasons. Life is full of transitions, which transitions was an episode that we talked about earlier. Go back and watch it. But in tonight's episode, you all, we'll be discussing how being prepared for those changing seasons, right? That happen in our lives. I don't know about you, but I hate not being prepared. But the reality is, if there's nothing else that we can count on, is that things are going to change in life, right? Change is inevitable. It's always going to happen. And so, but the goal is for us to be prepared for the changing seasons of life, right? And to make sure that we're able to navigate those changes confidently, right? So we gonna get ready to jump right in. Again, my goal is always not to keep us on too long. Y'all give me a few minutes. I know the weather is nice. Some of us might be out and about in them streets right now, and so you might have to watch the replay. But for those of you that's tuned in, I appreciate you all. But listen, let's get ready to jump right in. Y'all ready? Well, let's go. Listen, as I stated, as this season of Friday Night Live is quickly become coming to an end. Again, y'all heard me say this is episode 21. We got two more seasons, right? I'm from Chicago, and so excuse me, every season consists of 23 episodes. Yeah, I know why it's 23. 23 is a special number here in Chicago. Um, but we do 23 episodes. So we got 2 more episodes after this, right? 2 more episodes. So make sure y'all tune in and stay locked in with me. But as this season is starting to come to an end, I thought it would be a good idea to remind us, as I mentioned earlier, that we need to make sure that we're prepared for our next season in life. Especially as I stated, since we know that all of the various seasons and transitions in our lives, they all happen, and watch this, they usually vary just as much as the seasons of nature do. Meaning every season brings with it both highs and lows, right? Both good and bad moments, right? And some of those moments, whether it's good, bad, whether it's a high or low, some of those moments or situations or circumstances are sometimes specific for a specific or certain season. But the thing that about seasons also is every season brings with it different opportunities for reflection, right? It brings with it different opportunities to make change. It brings with it different opportunities for us to grow. And one of the major keys as it pertains to our growth, you all, or at least after we finish reflecting, is making sure or being prepared for whatever changes that come. And that preparation starts with knowledge. And speaking of knowledge, I don't know about you. I mentioned it earlier. But the only thing that bothers me more than not being prepared for something is when I'm completely oblivious, completely unaware of what's going on, right? Like I mean, I'm gonna be honest. There are moments and times when, depending on how my night was, I might wake up and I put on the wrong thing for what the weather is going to be, or what based on the season that we're in, right? I didn't pay attention that the weather is getting ready to change and it's gonna be 90 degrees outside, right? And I come outside with a flannel shirt, right, and an undershirt and a t-shirt under that, and some Timberlands, right? And it's 90 degrees outside. There's nothing that bothers me more than being completely unaware. I hate those days when I'm moving and I'm out and about, and then all of a sudden it just starts pouring down raining. And I'm like, wait a minute, where'd that come from? But that's because I wasn't prepared. And so I may end up getting drenched. I mean, who knows? Or because I was unaware, I don't went out and washed the car and spent all kind of money to have my vehicle washed, only for it to rain on it, right? Because I was completely unaware. But here's the thing about being unaware and why it bothers me. Because being unaware would mean, for me, that would mean that I lack some sort of knowledge. And when I think about that, I'm often reminded of a scripture in the Bible, Hosea chapter 4, verse 6 in particular, where it talks about the fact that God's people actually perish for a lack of knowledge. And I believe you all on tonight that if we were to be completely honest, when we look back over our lives, and sometimes if we just happen to look at our life right now, if we're being honest, a lot of the issues that we have in real life, I believe you all, they could be traced back to a lack of knowledge. And let's be clear, that lack of knowledge could be someone else's lack of knowledge. So that means they taught us the wrong thing or didn't teach us something at all. Or it actually could be because of our own lack of knowledge. Either way, a lack of knowledge means we're ignorant of something. When you lack knowledge, that means you're ignorant about something. You don't have the proper information about something. So either way, that ignorance, our ignorance or lack of knowledge, I believe you are, is directly connected to the lack of knowledge that God actually gives us or provides for us in his word. And this is why you all, I thought it was important not only for us to be aware when seasons begin to change, but I also thought it was important for us to have the proper tools when the season changes. So one of the first things that I want to just kind of throw out there as before I give us a couple of tips and we get ready to go on for our weekend. But one of the first things I want us to know about changing seasons is that every new season is preceded by what would be considered a transitional period, right? Because here's the thing. Every new season, it don't just happen all of a sudden. You don't just wake up all of a sudden and it's winter. We don't just wake up all of a sudden and it's summer. The changes for every season, they happen gradually over a period of time. And the key, right, is when those transitional periods begin to happen, that's when we should be preparing for the season that is coming, especially if we haven't done it already, right? So when we talk about the transition, that transitional period, like for example, how do we know when fall is coming or winter is coming? Real easy. We usually know when fall or winter is coming because the temperature gradually begins to change and get colder, right? Which means when we come outside or when we're outside and it's not as hot as it used to be when we get up in the morning. Yeah, we might have some days when it's colder, when it's a little warmer when we get up in the morning. But again, that's a transitional period. And it's usually in that transitional period where most of us have, if we're wise, we start making the transition or making the adjustments with our wardrobe, right? Many of us, we start putting up, folding up, and putting up the shorts. Sometimes we may keep a t-shirt depending on how we like the weather, as far as if it's too cold, not cold enough. But again, we certain things that we wear in the summer, we start putting those things away. Why? Because the weather is getting colder, and so we're adapting or adjusting to those gradual changes. Why? Because we know that fall or winter is coming. So that means we can't be walking outside with a tank top and some shorts, right? Or at least, so I know some people do it when they going in and out the gym, but you know what I mean, on a regular, everyday basis. The things that we wear in the summer, we can't wear it in the fall or the spring. And it's the same thing for the spring and summer. We know when spring and summer is coming because the temperature starts to change and starts getting warmer. Another thing that's a part of that transitional period, some of us might begin to notice that when the weather starts to get a little bit colder, like fall, winter, usually daylight gradually begins to get shorter and shorter, meaning the sun is not shining as bright as long. But when the springtime comes and when the summertime comes, daylight is shining a little bit longer, right? In the summertime, 5, 6 o'clock is the sun is still shining bright. In the fall, winter, depending on what's going on, the sun is starting to go down 4 or 5 o'clock. Sometimes even by 6 o'clock, it's dark out. But here's the thing about that. The same way that those gradual changes occur in nature, it's the same way in our seasons of life. Things begin to change gradually every day as our personal seasons begin to change. I told y'all I'm not going to be long. So as we get ready to kick off this weekend, right, I wanted to give us a couple of things to reflect on in order to prepare for our changing seasons. Is that okay? With that being said, here we go. I'm gonna just give us 2 tips, and then we're gonna get up out of here. The first thing I want to point out about changing seasons. First thing, when our season begins to change, things will no longer look or feel the same. If somebody taking notes, you can write that down. When our seasons begin to change, things will no longer look or feel the same. Like for example, if you got a tree in front of your house, right? That the same tree that sits in front of your house, it looks different in the summer compared to the fall and definitely in the winter. Because usually in the summertime, the leaves are full. They're probably green, right? Whereas in the fall, those same leaves, that same tree is still there. But those leaves are starting to turn orange or red. And they begin to fall to the ground to the point that by the time wintertime comes, that same tree is barren, right? It has no leaves at all. Same tree, but it looks different because of the season, right? But then once spring comes around, guess what? That tree that was barren in the winter, you start seeing leaves starting to bud again. And what we were just describing is the same way in our personal lives. As seasons begin to change, what we see, or even how we see things. For some of us, it may even be how we interpret things will be different. And that applies to everything, right? Whether we're talking about people, whether we're talking about certain places, or even certain things. Also, in that season, as seasons begin to change, some of the things that kind of made us feel one way in one season make us feel a little bit different in another season. I mean, and I'm talking about it can feel completely different, right? To the point that some things that we were maybe comfortable with in one season, when another season comes, we may begin to feel uncomfortable, right? We may go some places and a place we used to enjoy just it don't hit the same. And not because it's boring, it's because as we enter a different season, it feels that environment makes us feel different. As our seasons change, some of the people that we may be around, we might start to feel different about them. I'm not saying they're a bad person. It just may mean that our season is changing and we may begin to feel uncomfortable around them, right? Kind of like as we're talking about the weather, kind of like when the weather changes outside. In one season, watch this. We might have felt good wearing the shorts and the tank top, but when it starts getting colder out, you may not feel as good wearing shorts and a tank top outside when it's 30 degrees, right? Now you feel different. You feel cold. You didn't feel cold the last time you wore that, but that outfit worked for the season it was meant for. But it doesn't work in other seasons. But why? Well, why is it that that outfit in that season won't work in this season? It's because the atmosphere is different in one season compared to another. I hope somebody heard that. When the atmosphere in one season is different in another season. And watch this, as the atmosphere around us in our personal lives, as the atmosphere in our seasons begin to change, so will the items, watch this, so will the items that we need in one season compared to the other. For example, anybody got a snowblower? Snowblower. We live in Chicago. You need a snowblower. We can use a snowblower in the winter, right? But that same snowblower is absolutely useless to us when the spring and the summer comes. Same thing with a lawnmower. Everybody, if you got some grass and you ain't got just a dirt patch, you got a lawn, you need a lawnmower. But guess what? Just as much as that lawnmower is useful in the spring and the summer, and maybe in the fall a little bit, it's completely useless. It's a good tool to have, but a lawnmower does us no good in the winter. Watch this. Because the tools that we use in one season may not be useful or helpful to us in every season, which is why we need the right tools for the right season. Because the wrong tools in the right season watch this, could lead to our destruction. I'm talking about Hosea 4 and 6, right? If we're not prepared, right? If we lack the knowledge needed, we could end up having or using the wrong tools in the right season, which could either make things worse for us, depending on the situation, or it just may not be beneficial. And guess what? I gotta be honest. I don't know what else to do. I can only be honest. I believe that so many of us, you all, have become stuck. We've become accustomed to using the wrong tools in the wrong seasons, which is why some of us keep having, hear me out, we keep having not just issues, some of us, or so many people, keep having the same recurring issues. Why? Because we keep trying to use the same tool in every season. But why would somebody do that? Because either they haven't figured out what tools they actually need for whatever season they're in, or they were completely unaware that their season in life has changed. In other words, some of the tools, some of the strategies, some of the methods that were really useful to us at some point in time in our lives are actually no longer effective. But we keep trying to make it work. Let me just throw it out there. I'm going to be honest. A lot of churches actually struggle with this. Yes, it might have been a good method. It might have been a good strategy, right? It might have been a good idea for a certain season, but it may not be working or effective anymore. And there's many churches that are stuck using old methods or using the wrong tools in the wrong season. And this is why that's important, because I got a news flash. Seasons are going to change. And then it's going to change again. Then it's going to change again. And then it's going to change again and again. Which means just as our seasons change, so will the tools, methods, or strategies that we have to use. Yes, there may be some things that we can use in more than one season, but that doesn't mean that every tool will be able to be used in every season. But at least thank God that as our seasons begin to change, the small changes that begin to take place, they're usually noticeable if we're paying attention. That's why I'm having this conversation, because for some of us, we may have been distracted and didn't notice the changes. We didn't notice that it started to get a little colder outside, right? So we need to start dressing warmer. Or we didn't recognize that it's getting warmer outside. So we need to maybe not wear as many items, right? Certain things. It's time to put up a Carl Thomas sweater. But either way, I need us to recognize and realize as our seasons begin to change, things will no longer look or feel the same. The second thing I want to leave with us, and then we're gonna get up out of here. As the seasons begin to change, so will our actual needs, right? And I'm gonna break this down. My grandmother used to say, like, that when you dressing or you getting your clothes together, you dress for the season that you're in, not the weather, right? Because based on what the season lets you know what to expect. If we live in Chicago, we know it might be summertime, right? It is summertime. But just as much as the summertime, we know that the weather can be funny. We know what some I'm gonna say spring. We know what the springtime looks like, right? But all while this transitional period was going on, we knew good and well We might wake up and just like it's 80 degrees today, we might wake up and guess what? It's 30, 35, 40 degrees outside the next day. That's right. And because that might be an anomaly, whatever's going on, right? But we know what season we're in. So that's why you got to be prepared. And sometimes you got to find some tools. It's not always going to happen, but sometimes there's some things that are good for that transitional period, right? Something where you can roll up the sleeves, but and it's not too heavy, it's not too big, not too bulky, right? Those transitional pieces. But the thing is, and peep this out, as spring begins to approach and warm days begin to become the normal, we start switching our whole wardrobe and think. And watch, we even switch our mindset, right? Because there's certain things that we were accustomed to just doing naturally in one season. We got even have to consider switching our. We need to switch our mindset, right? That's a need. We watch this. When the winter time is coming, we need boots. We don't need sandals and flip flops, right? Because it's not going to work. It's not going to be beneficial to us in the wintertime. Or even like when if the temperature is 25 degrees outside. I don't think it'll be wise if it's 25 degrees outside for you to be like, oh, let me look here and get this shorts and my tank top and my flip flops and just going about my business. Why? Not only will we look like a complete fool outside in the weather, you can mess around and get yourself sick. But I got another example. It's 7 p.m. on Friday, 95 degrees. But I guarantee you, you show up at the spot with a mink coat on, and as I say, that Carl Thomas turtleneck sweater with the matching hat, you're gonna look crazy. Why? Because you're not dressed for the season. You need to change, or we need to change our attire. We need to change how we dress, how we act, how we move. But not only that, I'll be honest. If it's 95 degrees outside and you got a mink coat on, turtleneck sweater, you mess around and pass out from heat exhaustion, which could actually lead to a heat stroke. Meaning, if you're not prepared for the right season with the right things, you can cause yourself more hurt than harm. Maybe that's what Hosea was talking about. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Some versions of that scripture say, my people they are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. Same thing. You causing yourself hurt or harm potentially simply because you're not prepared because you lack knowledge. But at the end of the day, you all, just as our attire will need to change, depending on how our season changes, it's the same way in life. Many of our other needs will begin to change, which means we need to plan accordingly to prepare for the next season, right? Why? Because we need to make sure that we have the appropriate items for the appropriate season. For some of us, survival mode works, right? In this season, survival mode may not work for you. And maybe one season you had to be selfish. In this next season, selfishness might not work. You may need to You may need to figure out how to collaborate, or vice versa, right? You might have been looking out and helping everybody, and not taking care of self, not resting, not just loving on yourself. In this season, you may need to prioritize loving on yourself. Either way, you all, when our season begins to change, we need to make sure that we adapt to those changes. Meaning, we need to recognize that a new season is approaching and then start making the necessary changes so that we can be successful in the next season. And I got to go there. What does that mean, like realistically? That means once we recognize that some of the people, places, or even things we've been connected to, once we realize that certain relationships or certain environments or certain people no longer meet our needs emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, we need to let it go. We need to move on. Because while it may have been useful or beneficial to us last season, doesn't mean it's going to be beneficial or useful to us in this next season. And the last thing I would want for any of us, first off, I wouldn't want any of us to be out here looking crazy wearing a mink coat in 95-degree weather, right? But instead, I want us to be prepared to walk confidently into our new season, regardless of what season that might be. That's why we got to pay attention to the gradual changes. So that because that's how you know what tools you would need, what items you would need, based on the changes that are occurring. So as we go into this weekend, I want to encourage each and every one of you all under the sound of my voice. Take a moment. I ain't saying you got to do it tonight, but take a moment and reflect on whether or not first that you even notice any gradual changes in whatever season of life that you're in. Then ask yourself the question based on the changes that you see. How prepared are you for the next season? Then take note, right? I'm literal. Write the vision, make it plain. Take note of what you have. Take note of the strategies, the methods, and things that you have. The people you are connected to, right? All of the things that take note of it to see what do you have. What do I need to let go of? What do I still need in order to be successful in this next season? Because I don't want to be bogus. And I don't want you to be bogus. Well, listen, that's all I got for y'all on tonight. I hope that this conversation blessed somebody, even on the replay. I pray that somebody was blessed by this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you all next Friday night live. As always, again, I appreciate you all so much because I know you could have been anywhere. So make sure you tune in next week. Remember, we only got 2 more episodes left. But next Friday night live, we'll be talking about a new thing. But until then, I need y'all to remember, dreams plant the seeds for the future, and your future is most definitely bright. I got to get up out of here. Peace out. Love y'all.